everybody? It's your girl Erica, the author. Welcome to my YouTube channel, and thank you so much for tuning in. Happy Sunday. I hope your day has gotten off to a great start. It is a beautiful day in the neighborhood, or it's a beautiful day where I am. The sun is shining bright. We had almost an entire week of rain for last week, so this week has started off really good. The sun is beautiful, and it's just a beautiful day in the neighborhood. So I'm ready to go. I'm here to do my weekly review of Love and Marriage Huntsville. Now, guys, I'm going to try to get through this video without sneezing because my allergies have been off the hook. Like, I literally just got back from Costco and I had a sneezing fit, like, even as I was like trying to just, come in the house and stuff like that. But guys, I'm going to try to get through it. Bear with me, guys. I really just appreciate your patience, even if I have to pause the video. But let's get into it. So, of course, this is season 11, episode 13, and this is Love and Marriage Huntsville. The episode was called Soft Hands, Hard Heads. Now, guys, I will say we are at the season finale. It's been a great season. I don't know whether to say part of season 10 and the first part of season 11 was great, or whether it was just season 11 altogether. But it's been 13 episodes, and like I said, I have enjoyed all 13. Before that, guys, I was saying, I don't know where Love and Marriage Huntsville can go. It just doesn't seem like they have anywhere else to go, but it seems like they've kind of revived things, and thanks to Destiny and some of her stories and some of the others who contributed this season, it turned out pretty good. So let's go. So the opening scene, of course, was the continuation of last week. We know last week that they were having like a dinner. There was a cast dinner. Everyone was there. Initially, the conversation turned to Maurice's accident a few seasons ago, where he said he hit a pole, a tree, and an animal, and everyone was pretty much laughing at the table, but it did cause some problems for Maurice and Kimmy. But Martell, and so Maurice and Martell sort of started to go back and forth, and Martell said, well, let's be clear, let's be real about what really happened. You were drinking and driving, and you don't really remember what happened. So that's how they sort of got into it. They were still kind of going back and forth as this particular episode started. Martell was repeating himself and saying, you need to be honest about you drinking and driving, and I'm not going to like let you come at me, knowing that I'm telling the truth. And that's Martell's biggest thing. Kimmy said that Maurice wants to save Martell. He wants to be the one to sort of take up for Martell. She said, but I said Martell shouldn't have come on this trip. Martell shouldn't have come on this trip. And, but here's the deal, Kimmy. It was okay if it would have been okay with you, Kimmy, if Martell was spilling Ken and LATRICIA's business. It would have been okay if Martell was spilling Destiny's business. It would have been okay if Martell was spilling Chris and Nell's business. But because he said something about your husband, Kimmy, now you don't want him around. And we know exactly why, because Martell exposed Maurice as a cheater. So now you can't stand Martell. You used to be on the I love Martell train. Now you're on this smear campaign against Martell and saying that he's a star, he's an ish starter, and he loves confusion, and he hates marriages, and he doesn't want to see anyone happy. I call BS on that. That's definitely not true. Even if that's true, partly true, the thing about it is you guys had no problems poking fun at Martell. And believe me, I'm not taking up for Martell Holt, but you had plenty of time and you had plenty of fun poking fun at him and making fun of him, knowing that he was going through things and he had done things wrong. Yet now when he's doing it and the tides have turned, now he's such a horrible person. Well, what does that make you guys now? Are you guys horrible people as well? Was it okay? Are you guys the horrible people now? So that's the question that I actually have now. So anyway, Martell was kind of going off so bad that Destiny was trying to calm him down. And Nell opened up her mouth and said something. And I think Martell was just in the midst of the argument. And he told Nell was sitting right next to him. And he told Nell, you shut the F up. And it was very jarring. It was very disrespectful. Martell was in the moment. Destiny kind of grabbed Martell's shirt. I think he had like a hood or something, and she kind of grabbed his shirt and was like, ho. Like she was trying to rein him in and say, don't disrespect her like that as a woman. And Destiny was right. She shouldn't have put her hands on Martell, but if that's her friend, she should have told Martell, no, you're out of control. You're disrespecting someone else's wife, and you're just disrespecting another woman and a human being at this table. If you want want to go at it with Maurice, cool, but not Nell. Chris didn't say anything. That was kind of shocking. The other men or no one else at the table said anything, but Martell was in such a moment that he didn't even catch himself. Chris said in his confessional, Nell said, as my husband, you should check Martell. But Chris said that Martell is just like a child. Sometimes he goes off like that, but he will calm down. Eventually, it's like a toddler. He will take a nap, or he will eventually get up and walk away from the table himself once he comes down. So that was Chris's response. He didn't want to get involved. He knows how his friend is, and he let it go over his head. So I guess if Chris didn't say anything else, no one else could actually comment or say anything. So Marceau tried to rein everything in. You know, and the thing about it is Marceau was just trying to say, basically, you know, we can't basically fight fire with fire. You know, Maurice, he was telling Maurice, you know, Maurice, you're out of control. Do you realize what's going on? You're out of control. And so Maurice said, okay, I'm going to calm down. So Marceau said, well, today was actually a good day. You know, we had some resolution. It was a great day. So that's how that day kind of ended, with Marceau just trying to glaze over what just happened and trying to kind of like, I don't want to say sweep it under the rug, but just move past it quickly. So that was pretty much the end of that, when he said that they had a successful day. Everyone kind of laughed, and that was it for that. So the next scenes we see, normally they may have like dual scenes where we see maybe, you know, the men talking and then the women. Well, we actually had 3 group conversations going on at once. So we had Chris and Martell, we had Tisha and Marceau, and then we also had Destiny and Will. So guys, you know I have my notes here. So I'm going to try to tell you, I might have to look down a little bit just to tell you, because there was, again, a lot of dialogue in this particular episode. A lot of them, you know, when it's the cast, sometimes it's only like a few scenes here and there with a few people, but no, this was the entire cast. So let's get to that. So Chris and Martell were talking. Martell asked Chris, was Nell mad? Chris said Nell wasn't mad. Chris said he really and truly, he said he didn't really realize who Martell was talking to, because Destiny was also kind of loud in that moment as well. She was drinking and she was talking kind of loud. So he kind of assumed that it was that Martell was talking to Destiny initially. So Martell said, you know, he understands, you know, he said he didn't want Nell to be mad with him. And then Martell says that, you know, he's just kind of tired of the whole thing. He doesn't know why Kimmy has such a problem with him. If Kimmy has a problem, then, you know, Kimmy needs to tell Maurice and let Maurice come to him and say something. But he says she should not be saying anything to me. And we know how those men in the South are, that you are to be seen and not heard. You are not to address a man or say anything to a man. And Martell and this entire Huntsville cast of men, they are no different. And so Chris was just telling Martell, he said that basically, you know, he said he wants him to stop lying. And he said, well, which one, you know, Maurice or Marceau? So Chris is letting it be known that, yes, Marceau and Maurice are liars. And so the bottom line is, now we flip to Marceau and Tisha. Marceau came out and basically said Kimmy started that whole argument at the table last night. They were on like a little hike or something like that. But Marceau came right on out and said Kimmy was the one who started it. And she was, because she kept egging it on about what's being said in the media and how is it a good day when things are being swept under the rug. She did initiate that. So Marceau was correct with that. Tisha said that, and Marceau also went on to say he actually took up for Martell. He said Maurice took it wrong. He said Martell is not that person. He said that Martell was not laughing at the situation. He was laughing at how the story had been told, but not the actual facts of the story, which I do agree. Martell said had he known it was really, really serious, then no, he would not have made it. You know, he wouldn't have made it a big deal, or he would not be talking to Maurice like that. And Martell and Maurice seem to have had a pretty good friendship over the years. So I do kind of believe that. Marceau said that Maurice took it wrong, and then in the effort of him taking it wrong, he decided to fight fire with fire, and he became angry. So then we see Then we see Destiny and Will. They're sitting outside talking. Will seems to be speaking a lot on what he's seen. He's observing a lot of things going on in the actual group now. Will is kind of like a friend of the show. At first, I didn't really care for Will because Will seemed to always have something kind of borderline disrespectful to say about women, or he was just one of those guys where he just let it be known, like, I really don't have a lot of respect for women. I don't like relationships. I don't like love. I don't like any of those things. If you want to, you know, have a good time, then I'm down for that. But anything else is like, no, I can't get with that. But Will, he seems, like I said, he seems to be paying attention, and he's a lot more observant, and I like that. This kind of Will. Will's going to be a part of the show. Then I want to hear Will talk more so about those things rather than what kind of man he is, and I'm all that and all that. I'd rather hear Will talk like this. So Will said that Kim overreacted. And I said, yeah, well, you're 100% correct. He did. He's paying attention. And then he says, he tried to have a conversation with Destiny, and I kind of respected the way he did it. He did not want to be disrespectful to Destiny in any kind of way. You could tell Will was choosing his words carefully when he was talking to Destiny. He said, you know, Destiny is combative, and it's worse when she's drinking. And Destiny said, no, she's like that all the time. It has nothing to do with her drinking. She's just more of a person that tends to express or say how she feels. Will said, well, you have to be careful about that because you can control the temperature. You know, you have to kind of watch yourself, you know, and how you react to certain things. And I think that what Will was telling her, he was actually correct in what he was saying. So then we saw Tisha telling MARSAU about, Tisha was telling MARSAU about her argument with Destiny on the boat. Of course, the men were on another boat in the water, but the ladies were together. So she was telling MARSAU about that. MARSAU finally told Tisha that, you know, basically don't burn down the bridge. Don't burn your bridges. You know, you keep saying you and Destiny are great friends. If you want that friendship, don't burn the bridge. Now, if you feel otherwise and you feel like it's time for you to move on from that friendship, then he said, you know, light the fire. And, you know, okay, MARSAU is always given like this fatherly advice and stuff like that. Well, MARSAU, you, like I said, just at the beginning of this season or the end of last season, you were telling Tisha, don't trust her. You know, she's not a friend to everyone, is a friend to no one. You were kind of planting the evil seeds. Now you're backtracking in a way and telling Tisha, don't fully mess up the friendship, or if you are, you're going to have to go all the way. So I was kind of like, okay, MARSAU, you know, I just get tired of all this advice that they give everyone else, and then they don't take their own advice. And I think that's where I am. So MARSAU also told Letitia that she has to acknowledge her part in their arguments. You know, you keep saying that you're hurt, but you also have to acknowledge Destiny's hurt. Now, the thing about it is MARSAU was correct, but I know that that's going to come back to bite Letitia in her butt, because what's going to happen is MARSAU's, when he needs to use that against her, he will, and he will tell her, see, you do that with everyone. You talk about everyone. You play this victim role where you're hurt and you're so hurt about everything, but you hurt everyone else and no one is able to even share their side. And you do that to me, you do it to Destiny, you do it to everybody. So he's going to use that against her. So I said, uh-oh, Letitia, you better buckle up, because it's going to come back to bite you. So Will was still telling Destiny, look, you need to kind of calm it down some. And I think Will was saying, in a way, Destiny is a beautiful woman. You know, she's a cool girl. He has fun with her, but he's trying to let her know your looks and your demeanor don't match. And that's really what he was telling her. You're too pretty to be that nasty. You're too pretty to act that way. You're too cool to have such anger and venom inside of you. And that's what he was saying. He said it. He didn't say those words. This is just me and my interpretation of what I feel like Will was saying. But to me, that's what Will was saying. You have to learn how to control it and rein that in. And I think like this, I do like Destiny. I think everybody's starting to tell Destiny that she's very combative and a little too chaotic sometimes. And I think she needs to take that into consideration. I know her history. We know more about how she grew up. We know more about her, you know, just a little more about her life. And she says she's in therapy. So I hope that that's one of the things that Destiny is working on in therapy, because I think she can be a little too combative. Do I think that sometimes they come at her and she's not expecting it? Oh, absolutely, I do. I think that, like I said, this was supposed to be a takedown season with her in a way, but it just did not work. But does Destiny come across a little combative at times? Yes. And I even hate to say that, because I genuinely like Destiny. I've always liked Destiny, even going back to when she first came on the show. I saw some of the flaws, but I felt like she was a good enough person where it could be something that could actually be kind of worked on. So Destiny, maybe you need to take the advice of some of your friends and try not to be so combative. And so MARSAU was saying that oh, that was the end of their conversation. So like I said, all of those conversations kind of ended. MARSAU was the last one, and he told LATRICIA, they were getting ready to walk back, that he feels like everyone wants some resolve. So MARSAU and Maurice, they have a sit-down conversation. MARSAU said that Maurice was out of character, and Maurice agreed. Maurice said he wants to be a good influence on Martell. Well, Maurice, Scott, were you a good influence on Martell when he was cheating on Mel? And you know, did you tell him, you know, Martell, you have a beautiful family, it's not worth it, you have these, you know, these kids, you have this beautiful wife, what are you doing? Were you trying to be an influence there? Were you trying to be an influence on Martell? You know, you're not an influence on him professionally, because you and Martell really don't even really do the same thing. I know you're an attorney and you do have some dealings in real estate, but how are you influencing him? And it seems like Martell is influencing you more than you're influencing him, because now it's coming out that you're allegedly doing some of the same things that Martell is doing. So who's influencing who? But the Scott brothers, they just believe their own hype. They think they're smarter than everyone else. They have all of these words that amount to nothing. So that, to me, that was a silly comment for him to make. So he says that they start discussing LATRICIA. So MARSAU said that he's still a little upset about their conversation that they had at BLAQUE. And he says that he wants a life partner, not a business partner. Well, LATRICIA also wants a husband. She doesn't want a father. How about that? So it has to balance out. In a relationship, it can't just be one-sided, and MARSAU Scott wants it to be his way. He and Maurice want everything their way. And I said in my notes, I said, MARSAU, who are you really trying to convince? Let's be clear. MARSAU and Maurice Scott are Jezebels. And people will say, well, you know what? Jezebels are not just women. Jezebel is a dominating, manipulating, controlling spirit. And that is how they operate. And they operate out of that daily. We have seen it since day one, season 1, episode 1. They operate out of this place of trying to dominate their wives, trying to control their wives, and trying to manipulate them. And here's an example of it. So Maurice tells MARSAU, put Tisha on the spot. He said, I did this to Kimmy. He said they were in business together. He said it was some type of business called Scott Imperial or something like that. I think that's what he said. He said, I asked Kimmy, how much would it cost for me to buy you out? Maurice, was this during the time when you were thinking about leaving, or was it because Kimmy really wasn't a supportive wife? Because to me, Kimmy is also a woman who allows you and lets you do whatever you want to do. But I said to myself, he said, Kimmy said, oh, no, you don't, no, I don't want you to buy me out. This is our thing. Excuse me, but again, it's a tactic to dominate her and then to bend her over a barrel, and then you snatch the rug from under her feet, and then she's kind of discombobulated, and then she's thinking no, and she's heard about it. Same thing. So that's what Maurice is telling his brother to do to his wife. Ask her, hey, how much would it cost for me to buy you out of Scout? Okay, we know what's going to happen. Letitia's going to be hurt about it. She's going to be sad about it. She's going to think, where is this going? But then they maintain the control. And I said to myself, Maurice and Marcel Scott are horrible men. They got married just to have someone to do everything that they want. Why do you have to follow someone who really doesn't even want you to be anything else to them but a servant? They don't even respect the fact that you have your own gifts, your own talents, your own abilities. You know, you're your own person. Kimmy's even older than Maurice. She was on this earth several years even before Maurice was even born, yet she has to follow him. And the thing about it is, these men have it all wrong. You have to be submitted to God in order, and then once you're submitted to him, then yeah, your wife can submit to you. But if you don't even have a covering and you're not submitted to anybody and you're just blatantly, you know, just sort of telling your wife to do this and do that, and you really don't even understand what that is, because it says submit to one another. And I'm not even trying to go down, you know, a religious route, or, you know, I'm not even trying to talk about that. But guys, let's get to the crux of the matter. These men are so big and so heavy on my wife listening to me. Why should she listen to you when you're never telling her to do the right thing? It's horrible. It is horrible that they want these women to fall in line. And I'm going to get more into it because, like I said, Marceau kind of came at Letitia wrong. And Marceau, you were wrong because you want Letitia to change, but you're not willing to change. But we'll get into it because Marceau, really and truly, you two keep talking about you want a life partner, not a business partner. Letitia's been waiting for you to show up for years, brother man, and you're not doing that. The bottom line is, maybe you need to take something off your plate. Maybe you need to stop working so hard and spend more time with your wife and your children and get your head together. Maybe you're in a bad place and you feel alone because you're doing things that you really should not be doing. And maybe you need to get your focus back and see where you really need to be going. And maybe you need to evolve as a person and learn how to do some other things other than try to just work, and then tell your wife you need to support me. Marceau, I think you're going down the wrong path, but I think something's going on with you where you're going to have to change. It's midlife crisis time and you are getting ready to hit a brick wall. But we'll go on. We'll get back to that. So after all of that, basically, Maurice tells Marceau that if you hit her with that, if you talk to her like that, then she will be able to listen and you will be able to get your point across. So you snatch the rug from under your wife, make her feel bad, let her all these thoughts run through her head, and then you say, now I got you. Now I can make you, and I can make you bow and bend to do what I want. They are horrible people. But I know some people may love them. This is just me. I don't like it, and I've seen too much of it. But I told you guys, if you go back, you know, I've been on Twitter for a long time, and I remember, and it's probably, I've never been that active on Twitter at all, but I remember saying Maurice was the worst one. And I probably said that back probably when it first started. So that probably was at least 10 years ago or several years ago. Maurice is the worst one, and I'm not changing my mind. He is. So Will and Kim meet up. Destiny brought, she had her little cart and she drove Will down there. Kim was asking what were they doing? Were they having some little, you know, rendezvous during the day? Will said no. Will said, you know, his room is underneath Destiny, or he's right there under her. So they just been kind of like hanging out or whatever together. So once they have a conversation, they have a sit down. And it was a simple conversation. Ken said he was glad that Will was there because Will, you know, Will is his friend. The other people he's trying to get to know, but Will is his true friend. So as they were sitting down, Will asked Ken how did he feel about how Maurice and Marceau came at him on the boat, I guess the previous day. Ken said he doesn't care about that. He says he knows what it is with him and LATRICIA. And Will even said it, and like I said, I like this Will. Will is being observant and he's interacting with the group and not just talking about him or all of his women. Will said he felt like, he said they wanted him to react the way they would react. He said that was what it was all about. They just wanted to basically bend you over a barrel, make you feel like you weren't strong and tough enough as a man, and then make you make a decision. They want you to think like them. But Will also said, which I thought was interesting, Will even said, he called them out, and he said he doesn't even believe that they would leave if their wives spun the block. And I said, Will, I'm gonna hang with you on this one, because I do believe that. See, Marceau and Maurice like to have these women like holding on to them and dragging them along. But the thing about it is, if Kimmy and LATRICIA really stood up for themselves, you guys would not even last. And the bottom line is, y'all depend on them a lot more than you give them credit for. But I'm gonna tell you now, you have the kind of women that you have because the average woman would not put up with that at all. And she can be a virtuous woman, she can be a soft-spoken woman, she can be all of those things. But please understand, respect is big, it's huge in any relationship, and being disrespectful is not it. So when Will said that, I said, Will, you're onto something, because see, they like to present themselves that I am the man, I am the man. But again, you guys look weak. You're always talking about what you want a woman to do. But again, Kimmy and LATRICIA run your whole lives. They've taken care of your children. They run your businesses. They basically get everything and get the ball rolling in so many areas. You guys are just yapping and running your mouths, and that's just the way I feel about it. So they start to discuss Trisha. And Will was asking him the hard questions about the whole spinning the block thing. Ken said, look, LATRICIA and I are good. He said, I love LATRICIA. I'm in love with her. He said, we really would be good. It's just the little things. And, he said, look, I am at a different place in my life where, Will said, look, do you really see yourself with LATRICIA? This was Ken's answer. He did not say yes or no. All he said was, I'm at an age now where it's more about what's best and not what I want. And I understand where Ken is. When you get a certain age, you want your peace. I can love you, but me loving you, I may have to let you go and let you live your life, because if it's taking away my peace and I'm constantly in conflict and chaos, then that's no way to live. So I do understand that, but Ken said that he loves LATRICIA and he will see where it goes. So that was the end of that. So then Ken, started asking Will about Destiny. Will said he likes Destiny. She's cool. Every time they're together, they have a lot of fun. But he said he was turned off by Destiny's actions the night before, how she acted, the drinking. He said if he had to make a decision based on that, whether he would choose Destiny or pursue something with her, then the answer is no, because of how she was acting. And he said she even nodded off at one point. And of course, there are a lot of things going on behind the scenes that we really don't see. But he said that was a deciding factor for him. So he can be cool with her. He's going to have fun with her. But anything outside of that, as far as a relationship, no. And he even went as far as to say Destiny wants something different that he doesn't want. He's not ready to be someone's husband, but he thinks that she's looking for something a lot more serious. So Ken asked, Will, does Destiny have masculine energy? And of course, Destiny has always said she has this big D energy, but men see through that. They, whether Destiny cares or not, men see through that. And they see your vulnerabilities, and they even see those negative things about you. And that's what actually happened. Ken and Will are seeing that Destiny has this masculine energy. And Ken even said that Destiny comes across as a feminist. And Will went on to say that, basically he summed it up and says, she is a girl's girl until she's with the girls. And that's saying a whole heck of a lot, to say you're a girl's girl. You're always talking about you support women, but you don't get along with women. At some point, you get into some type of tiff with them. You get into an argument. You get into some type of, confusion or chaos, and that's not good. And like I said, too, we know in the South how they look at women. Destiny's just supposed to be a pretty face, and that's it. She's not supposed to have an opinion. I don't believe that, but I do understand that, yes, sometimes when more than 1, 2, 3, 5 people are saying the same thing, it is probably an issue there, Des. And I hope that you can kind of just pull back a little bit and just show your softer side, because I think Destiny can be a really, really sweet person. Again, should she show that to everyone? No, absolutely not. But I just think that Destiny, maybe you need to kind of like not be as aggressive in these situations. Be yourself. Of course, you have to take up for yourself and defend yourself, but find a better way to do it, in a sense where, you know, you're not just, everyone's looking at you like you're just stark raving mad woman. And that's the picture that they're trying to paint. And I don't like that, but take their words of advice. I hope you watch the episodes and kind of take heed to it. So that was pretty much the end of that. So the men, they actually get together. They're building a table. When they build a table, it's actually a picnic table. So it was like the OGs versus the new Gs. So it was Maurice, MARSAU, and MARTELL versus Ken, Will, and Chris. So at first, you know, it seems like the OGs, they were getting the table together pretty quickly. Then Will realized that it was supposed to be a picnic table. So he put the table, they actually put the table together, and they put the table together very quickly, and they finished first. But MARSAU was saying basically it wasn't leveled off and it wasn't exactly how it needed to be. So sometimes it's not, you know, how quickly you can do something. It's about you taking your time and doing it. So the other men, their table was actually perfect. You could see where the table that Will and those guys did, the new OGs or whatever, you could tell where their table was uneven and a little lopsided. So they actually had one of the tour guys or someone who actually works at the property. She said that basically MARTELL, MARSAU, and Maurice had the better table. So that was just a little friendly competition. Kimmy said, you know, it was just getting her all hot and bothered just seeing Maurice with his hands like that. And I'm sure the minute y'all left out of there, you know, Maurice probably took you back to your room or to your little cabin or your house and banged you out. And I guess you were happy for that day because you finally saw him doing manual labor. Okay. So anyway, guys, and please forgive me because, like I said, I've just been a little disgusted with Kimmy. Kimmy was always the one, to me, the level-headed one, but in recent episodes and within these past couple of seasons, I'm just seeing another Kimmy, and I don't really like it. The entire group goes to dinner. Kimmy said, of course, you know, they had a great time. They wanted to host. They wanted to bring the group back together, and they wanted them to get along, and she loves to see, you know, the couples activities and stuff like that. Kimmy's not a girl's girl. So it's all about couple stuff for her. It's all about having the man there. But everyone was okay. You know, she said that, you know, just hosting a trip sometimes can be very difficult in making everyone happy and making sure that everyone gets along. But she felt like they had done a pretty good job and everyone was having a great time. And they all said thank you. They were having a good time. So Ken says that, you know, he wants to learn more about everyone at the table. He says he likes being in the group, but he said there's a lot of negativity coming his way. He said they talk about couples and building up couples, yet they're the ones tearing him and LATRICIA down. He said, you guys are the ones telling me that I should break up with her. I shouldn't have her in my life. You're saying I've been going through so much with her and I haven't even been married. So he was like, but where's the positivity? You're telling me all these negative things and what I should do, but no one's actually lifting LATRICIA and I up. He said, yes. He said, I was talking to someone. LATRICIA was talking to someone. We realized that the grass wasn't greener on the other side and we came back. So you guys basically need to mind your business and let us be. We'll work it out the way we work it out. And that's what he was actually telling the group. And so I told, you know, I said, I agree, you know, 1,000%. You got to kind of step back sometimes. You can't always comment on people's relationship, especially when you have your own stuff. And I agree with Ken, you know, he was right in saying that. And so, of course, Letitia said, well, Ken, I want to apologize to you because I was the one who came to LATRICIA and I did tell her that, you know, Ken has to be careful because a lot of people are talking as Letitia normally does. And, you know, Ken was saying, well, here's the deal. You're going off of information based off hearsay. It's not factual information. And he's right about that. And Letitia said, well, I understand. So Ken put it out there. And let me tell you guys, he did it in such a smooth way. He let it be known that there's some things going on at Black. But he said, let me tell you how he said. So he said, look, there are a lot of things that I hear about the Scott brothers and what's going on at Black in their back room. It's a lot of itty, you know what I'm saying? Not a lot of freak offs. Let me just say that going on. It's a lot of activities back there, but because I don't have the facts, I would never come out and say it, but I've heard it numerous times. So Letitia said, well, I understand that people have said stuff about my marriage, so I get where you're coming from and this, that, and the other. So Marsau said, but you're asking him to say something about your marriage now. No, in actuality, he's not, in actuality, she's not asking him to tell her anything. Ken actually said that on his own. Now, initially, Marsau was kind of sitting back proud because Ken said that I won't react to something that's not factual. But when Ken put it out there with what's going on at Black, you could see Martell smirking a little bit, and you could see Maurice and Marsau were actually a little nervous because they didn't really know what else Ken was going to say. So it kind of stopped there. He really didn't go any further, and I think Ken had gut punched them pretty good enough where it was he was going to turn it on them. So that's what happened with that. So they started talking about marriages. So Martell said, well, what are your deal breakers in relationships? And Kimmy said she thought that a deal breaker was cheating in a relationship. She said they talked about infidelity a lot when they first got married. And she said, but watching all these relationships and everything that's happened in our group and so many people that we know, you know, we look at things differently. So now, Kimmy, what you're saying is, you know that Maurice cheated and you did not separate from him, divorce him, or even think about leaving him. So now it's not a deal breaker. And so Martell also asked Letitia the same thing. And Letitia said, well, he knows what my deal breaker is. And they showed a clip of Letitia saying that if Marsau was cheating, she would leave. So that's really what's going on right there. We know, like I said, these girls have just kind of turned a blind eye to what's been going on in their marriages. So here's my boy Will. Will is the MVP of this episode. Will said, is anyone happy? Because he said the mood is always down, and he says, I see a lot of solemn faces. Will is eating. Let me tell you why. Because Will is seeing that these people love to talk about marriage, yet every time they're in a group setting or anytime something's going on, someone has cheated. There's a rumor about someone cheating, someone not being faithful. They're not getting along. They're having all these problems in a marriage. How can you even you can't even encourage people to get married because they're looking at the Scotts, they're looking at all these people at this table, and they're saying nobody's happy. And I said to myself, Will is on point once again, because every time they sit down for a dinner or something, most of the time when Will sits down with them, they're talking about a problem in their marriage. Either the woman's having an issue with her husband or the husband's having an issue with his wife, and they're just not happy. Like he says, this is not a place where, you know, and of course there are ebbs and flows and there are ups and downs in a marriage and in relationships and stuff like that. But the thing about it is we hear more negativity about these marriages than we do the positive. Now, Letitia said you're not going to be happy all the time. You're not going to be happy with your spouse, your children, even yourself. Sometimes you're angry with yourself. You have to deal with a lot. So Letitia was right about that, but I understood what Will was saying in this group. In this group, who actually has a solid marriage. And Will, kudos to you, because you peeped it all out and you basically exposed it for what it is. Bottom line, all of you guys are phony and you're fake. You're really not as happy as you want to be or as you pretend to be. So I guess the dinner was over. So Marsau and Letitia have a discussion and they have a follow-up to, you know, whatever the conversations they've been having. And so Marsau pulls her to the side. And of course, Marsau does exactly what he thought, what Maurice told him to do. He said, how much would it cost if I bought you out of school? So Letitia said, why would you ask something like that? You know, it sounds like, you know, it's leading to separation, and then that ultimately can lead to us getting divorced. It sounds like you don't really want me around or in your life anymore. No, no, no. Marceau, the manipulation. Here's the Jezebel, the manipulation part. No, no, no. That's not what I said. If you would listen to your husband and get out of your head, Marceau, you just snatched the rug from under Letitia's feet. You basically told her, I will buy you out. I don't even want you as a business partner anymore. And now she's dealing with, my husband doesn't even want me as a part of his business. And you're sitting up here acting like she didn't say anything, like she's wrong. She's not wrong. She's listening to, oh my goodness, where is this going? But Letitia has been here many, many, many times before, guys. She's not a rookie to this. So she saw where it was going. It hurt her, but Letitia gathered herself because she said, let me prepare for what he's trying to put at my feet. So he says that, you know, he says, you hear that I'm moving in a different direction, but I'm telling you that I'm alone and I need a partner, and you're not a partner. And he said, you know, Tisha said, well, when I told you that before, you said that you thought that I would go and cheat. I didn't say I was lonely. I said I was alone. Marceau, you're not alone. Letitia has been there for you every step of the way. How dare you even say that? There are a lot of men who are alone in their relationships and they don't really say a whole lot. But Marceau and Maurice, they talk all the time. Can you imagine being in a relationship or being married to someone like Maurice and Marceau, who has to teach you a lesson every single time? It's like you're a child every day, 365 days a year almost, or probably at least, well over half of that. Letitia has to get a lesson, a life lesson from Marceau. Letitia has been with Marceau for almost 20 years. Can you imagine how he has told her over and over again that she's not supportive, that she's not listening to him, that she's not doing what he wants her to do? She's heard it all before. And so now she doesn't react the same. She's hurt. She's built up that wall so she doesn't react the same to him. So Marceau said, he wants her to be supportive. Like he says, sometimes Letitia says, let's go out to lunch. Well, you know that I'm working hard and I'm doing all of this stuff and I've given you everything I want. And then you won't even bring me lunch. You want to be taken out to lunch. And Letitia said, I brought you lunch numerous times, but that's not a date. That's not really quality time, because again, you're going to end up talking about work. And any woman who has dealt with a man who does that kind of work in contracting, you know, whether they're an electrician, plumbing, HVAC, all those things, or they just deal with those kind of things like contract, like moving things, a lot of times the conversations become more about their jobs. It becomes more about you becoming an assistant to them. You start reminding them of their appointments. You start talking about the business all the time. You start talking about those things. I'm speaking from experience. You end up talking more about that than you do anything else. So I understood where Letitia was saying that is not a date. You have to be able to separate business from family, business from your marriage, business from the relationship. And that's what Letitia was saying. But Marceau trying to manipulate Tisha and make her feel like she's such a bad person and she's not there for him. You're not there for me. You're not there for me. Marceau, how much do you want her to be there for you? What do you want from her that she hasn't given you for 20 years? The bottom line is, Martell, is Letitia's a different woman, and she feels horrible. She has been alone for years. And like I said, Marceau, if you're lonely, if you're feeling alone, you got to do something different. Sometimes you go through these midlife crises and you go through things where you say, I got to change. I got to switch this up. I got to do something different. I can't make it everyone else's fault. That's what happens when you're an adult and you're becoming wiser. I can't make it everyone else's fault. I have to take ownership and accountability for maybe what's going on in my life. It has nothing to do with Letitia at all. Maybe it's me. And that's what Marceau needs to get to. But of course, Marceau is too arrogant and to even say that. So he thought it was going to work. So he thought he had won. See, this is about winning with the Scots. Marceau wanted to win. He thought he had broken Tisha down because Letitia kind of cried. She didn't cry a lot, and I was proud of her. She let a tear fall out because she was hurt. But she said, I've been here before. Let me just sit here. And when she said, I'm sorry, LaTisha didn't mean I'm sorry. LaTisha said, let me say what he wants to hear. Let me just patronize him. Let me just get this over for myself. I'm sorry, Marceau. She said it sarcastically. Like, oh, I'm always the wrong one. Let me just tell you that I'm wrong again. Poor me. I'm just a horrible person. I'm not smart. You know, I don't listen. I'm such a bad person. And she said it. I'm sorry. That's why she said it to him like that. And Marceau was, no, you don't mean it. You don't mean it. Now he's trying to gain the control back. You don't mean it. You don't mean it. You're not being a good wife to me. You're not supporting me. You're leaving me out there to dry. I'm doing everything for you. It was all a manipulation tactic. And Marceau, you look absolutely dumb because Tisha ended up still sitting there. Tisha was so shocked, like, wow, is it? She was like, okay, is this for the camera? Is this real? Tisha didn't even really know how to take it. She was like, okay. So Marceau said, no, I'm getting ready to leave. And Tisha said, that's fine. LaTisha said, I've done my part. She said, in every step of the way, she said, you're pushing me away. You saying that you're on your own, but she said, you're choosing that path. Things you're doing it on your own. You're not even including me. You're actually excluding me. And she says, I have nothing to do with that. But she says, I'm alone too. And LaTisha Scott has been alone for a very long time. You have to be alone when you have someone who has to always be right all the time. You're never heard, you're never seen, any of that, because that person is always right and you're always wrong. And I felt bad for LaTisha in that moment. I could see her hurt and her pain, but I could also see where LaTisha has grown a little bit and she won't let Marceau take her all the way down and out. LaTisha is at that point that if I let Marceau continue to do this to me, I would have a nervous breakdown, or I would be no good to myself or to my children. And sometimes when a woman has a broken heart or get depressed like that, you don't know what could happen to them. They might not even be here on earth anymore. But LaTisha has made up in her mind she's not going to let Marceau drag her down that far. And I was happy for her. I could see that inner strength in LaTisha in that moment. So LaTisha Scott, you may not ever see my video, but I am extremely proud of you because Marceau wanted to stomp on you and manipulate you in that moment, and you stood up for yourself. Even though he was telling you you haven't been supported, you supported yourself in that moment. I was team LaTisha Scott in that moment. And so Marceau said that he was going to leave, and you know, he kept trying to get her to come. See, he wanted to control it, but Tisha said, no, I'm gonna sit here for a minute, you go ahead. And Tisha said in her confessional, she said they haven't been on the same page for a while. She doesn't know what will happen. Hopefully they can work it out, but she said she did just like that. She said, we'll have to see. And that was the end of their season and the end of that episode. Kudos to the Love and Marriage Huntsville cast. You did a great job this season. I will say it was a good episode. And like I said, I was proud of LaTisha in that moment. Tell me what you guys think. How did you like this season? And how did you like this episode? Do you agree? Do you see the manipulation with Marceau, or do you actually feel like LaTisha isn't a supportive wife? How did you feel about what Ken said? Is this group really trying to break him and LATRICIA up, or bring them close together? What do you feel about what Will said concerning Destiny? Is there some truth to what he said, or is Will just saying that because maybe he can't get Destiny to do what he wants to do? Let me know what you think, guys. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel, and also share my video. I know that there are so many people who don't even have access to the own station, or they're just busy. Some people are like adult learners. They have children. A lot of people are in school themselves. They're doing so many things, and they don't really have time to just sit down and watch an episode. Please share my video with them. You know, sometimes you can listen to it in the car or while you're cooking. I listen to a lot of my YouTubers sometimes while I'm driving, while I'm cooking, doing other things here at home. And it just kind of like relaxes you, even just to listen to a person talk about one of your favorite shows. So again, guys, I thank you so much for your support. and stay tuned. You know, that's all I can say. I wanted to do some other things. I will do some more Atlanta stuff now. Like I said, I was in just transition and stuff like that, but I'm going to try to do more videos throughout the week. I have just really been doing it once a week, and that's been kind of working for me, but I am going to try to pick up a little bit more. So like I said, hang in there with me, guys. I appreciate each and every one of you and each and every share, as well as each and every view. Thank you so much, and I will see you on the next video. Bye.